So it's about engaging the young people and then supporting them all the way through their school career in whatever they will need to improve or learn, or habits they've got to leave behind if they're going to be successful in the workplace.
You're listening to Around the School Table, hosted by me, Steve Davis, and proudly powered by Zuno Suite. We'll be bringing together the many voices shaping primary and secondary education across Australia, from principals and teachers to education thought leaders and system innovators. Whether you're in the classroom, the staff room, or the boardroom, this is your podcast to be informed, inspired, and connected. Today on Around the School Table, we're joined by Richie Furber, Principal Consultant at the Motivation Foundation and the soon-to-be-launched Motivation Education Career School, or MEX, in Perth. Richie will share how they're transforming education by focusing on real skills and industry partnerships to guide students, many of whom are at academic risk, toward meaningful employment in mining, construction, and beyond. With a strong belief in belonging and hope, Richie's work's not only changing lives, but also meeting critical workforce needs. And if you're an educator who's interested in practical pathways from school to career and the power of data-driven support, I'm pretty confident this conversation will offer some powerful insights and some inspiration. Richie, welcome to Around the School Table.
Thank you very much.
The Motivation Foundation, it began as a response to community needs for training and jobs rather than financial handouts in Perth in Western Australia. Next year, you're launching your school, known as MEX, which will take students from skill development to paid employment. I believe it's the first of its kind in Australia. Can you take us through the journey?
Yeah, I believe it is a first of a kind. I haven't been able to find anywhere else like it, and it's unique in the fact that we're a special assistant school or care school with an industry partnership. So we've got several industry partners, one being Urtech, civil construction, also CTF, which is a construction training fund, which is a West Australian initiative to address shortages in the workforce. And we've also got an ATM, which is a registered training organisation to standardise the certificates and the certification the students achieve.
This is the outcome.
This is. So it began in 2008, just as our Tech Civils Academy. By 2018, Motivation Foundation Mining Civils Academy had opened in the site that we're in just now, which is the old Kalunga Aboriginal Community School. And come 2026, we'll be opening as, all going well, we'll be opening as a special assistant school, which is primarily for students at academic risk, who are engaging or have disengaged from mainstream education, possibly without the hope of getting back into school in year 11 and 12 of graduating or getting an ATAR. So they have genuine hope to come here. They get industry skills, industry certification, education certification, but more importantly than that, we actually train them how to be employees, because employment's all about attitude. So it's very much about behaving the right way, turning up at the right time, in the right attire, and having the correct attitude to do things right. So we talk about arriving a little bit early, leaving a little bit late, and doing a little bit more than you're expected to, because that's how you get noticed in the workplace, and that's how we help people succeed.
It's also the crux of, I think it's Seth Godin's novel called Linchpin. That's one of the things he argues for that just sets you apart from other people. But before we go into a bit more detail on that, I must just reflect. I do another podcast called Vocational Voices for the National Centre for Vocational Education Research. I've been covering VET for many, many years. It seems to be a slow-moving part of the sector. What is it, do you think, has enabled Motivation Foundation to actually take strides forward? What's the secret DNA?
Up until now, the foundation has really existed on philanthropy and sponsorships and partnerships with industry partners in the mining and the civils industry. So that's a stumbling block. What we do, we do change lives. We change lives of young people who are not in education. They maybe don't have working role models, intergenerational welfare, and so on. So that is a real cause of changing those lives. But when it comes to attracting philanthropy, it's not as medical, saving lives, looking after babies, children. So it's difficult to track that philanthropy and sponsorship. So you really need to look at a more dependable income stream, which we'll do through the school. And this, I've been a principal at the last school, was a foundation principal previously for 10 years. So we've got that licked in terms of school management and financial management, and we've sort of proven this model in a partnership. So now it's proof of concept as a standalone school.
So proactivity, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is also what you're going to be teaching at the school.
Yes.
VET qualifications focusing on mining and the construction industry is the ultimate goal of Motivation Foundation and MEX. And I believe one of those quals is the Certificate 2 in Civil Construction. What are some of the other qualifications that you offer that people might recognise? So
the civils is obviously straight. It says it does exactly what it says in the tin. It's Civil Construction Certificate 2. We also do resource and infrastructure, which of course is that tilt on the mining industry, which is obviously big here in WA as well. And then we also look at workplace skills. All the skills you need in the workplace. So it's another Certificate 2. And foundation skills for workplace. So we're trying to say it's not just about the civil construction certificates. It's about having the skills, the soft skills, if you like, to be able to be successful in the workplace. And we also look at the specific machine tickets as well, whether that be rollers, graders, water carts, excavators. So we've got all this heavy plant on site, which isn't cheap. We've got to have a big site to do that and obviously maintain it. So we've got students. They come from different schools. They do a trade as well. So, year nines turn up to do this. And again, a lot of the trade students are not the academic students, maybe some of the more difficult to manage students. And the teacher turns her back and all of a sudden she's, year 9 and Johnny in a grader, doing whatever. They couldn't trust them in a science lab. But out here, we've got everything in place. So we have a simulated industry site, so they become engaged in that and be part of that. So it's more engaging that way. So we've got these things as well. The first thing we've got to do when we get these students is we've got to re-engage them in education. We've got to engage them in our programs. So we're supported with experienced staff in dealing with this student cohort, as well as youth workers. We engage psychologists and so on and so forth. So we really think about belonging and being part of the culture and understanding the culture and expectations, so you can be successful in this place. And because it is something which is real, which of course a lot of the cases the waste and the ATAR are not attainable for them. We still obviously do the academics, literacy, numeracy, etc. But the difference is everything's immersed in the civil construction and mining industry. So when we're learning prose, we're not using a Shakespearean tragedy. We're using a job hazard analysis or a skill, a risk assessment. So they're fully immersed in it. So by the time they've qualified, they are well and truly ready for the industry.
I mean, reading a risk assessment versus a Shakespeare soliloquy, I mean, both can send you to sleep.
Yeah,
but one of them
know that one's going to be useful.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
One's a tool for them. Yeah.
I apologise to Shakespeare if he's listening in. You've got a tight focus on outcomes, and in thinking about this, that's got to be part of the reason why you've got such strong relationships with industry, like ERTEC and the Civil Training Fund. I just wonder, thinking out loud for many of our listeners who might be in more what you might call broad mainstream schools, is there anything that they could pick up from the way that you're operating that help their kids with getting jobs on graduation?
It's something that we start that at enrollment, and probably started this focus with the last school I started in 2015. And again, it was another CARE school, Curriculum Re-Engagement Education School, or Special Assistance School in the Eastern States. So obviously we weren't going to get WACE or ATAR, so how do we evidence their existence? So yes, it's in certification and vet certification, but really it's about outcomes. So what I did was, over the last 10 years, I tracked of that school, which went from one campus to 17 campuses. We tracked the student transitions. And I thought, that's how I'm going to evidence our existence here, our worth. So in that first year, I think we had 82% transition directly into TAFE, employment, apprenticeship, traineeship. So I then went on and went to compare with other schools. I couldn't find any other schools that actually published that data. So that's interesting for me, because what are we doing here? We're trying to make successful young humans who are able to go to university or TAFE or the workplace. So over the 10 years of that school, which is going on without me, I think we're between 74 and 83% transitions. So I kept that data, and what we're going to be doing with this school as well is we are going to be, again, storing that data, but I'm going to augment what we do at the school with a position which will be a career and transition support officer. So the reason that's important is to have a relationship with them in the school, then also have relationships with our industry partners and work sites and so on. So that relationship bridges the gap from the student leaving the school and then entering the workplace, because it's a daunting thing for somebody who's 18 in their first job. They've just come out of school. So that person will also be able to support them and speak to supervisors and so on to say, are there any things that they need to do better? Also, when you've got a 17-year-old or 18-year-old Jenny in her first job, and she's got a crusty old 45-year-old supervisor telling her off or demanding things, there's a big power imbalance. So having that extra person there will support that. We will also gather data from that, so we'll be able to see what makes some students successful, or what we need to do more or less of to increase success in the future. But it all starts back in the beginning at enrollment, when we enroll them in the school and say, what do you want to do? In here, it's all going to be civils. Initially, it's going to be civils, but there are 9 different streams of civils, as well as mining. We're also then going to look at an engineering pathways certificate, which will start in 2027. And what that does is it introduces young people to engineering, welding, boiler making, and so on. Because over here in West Australia, in Perth, we've got Henderson, which is then going to be looking at, well, there's already a shortage of employees or skilled employees in welding, engineering, as well as civil construction. So we'll have more outcomes for those young people. So it's about engaging the young people and then supporting them all the way through their school career in whatever they will need to improve or learn, or habits they've got to leave behind if they're going to be successful in the workplace.
I wish I had one of those career transition officers when I started my first job in
Me too.
in Godfrey's Hardware, and I was up against those tough blokes. But I'm curious, you said it starts at the beginning when they come to you and you ask them what you want to do. What's the situation when they don't know what they want to do? Or is that not something in this particular cohort?
Well, in the previous school, it was open. They could have looked at anything, because we had a range of certificates from, you name it, they could go and do anything. But we're specifically here looking about civil construction and then engineering pathways and so on. So there are 9 different streams, and what we do is with our and look, they've come here because they want to do this, and part of the enrollment process is part of the screening process. Do you really want to do this? Why are you here? It's going to be hot. There's going to be flies. There's going to be hard work. Sometimes it's going to be cold and wet. This is what we do, and a lot of times the young people have got parents in the civils industry or the mining industry, so they know what's happening and they really want it. And if they want it, they'll succeed here. Other times we've had young people who, again, generational welfare, no working role models. They've been the first people in their family that they have known that have left here and gone and made a couple $100,000, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, working FIFO. So there are there are motivators for them.
I guess if you're choosing from a smaller menu to begin with, Barry Schwartz has a book called The Paradox of Choice and says when we've got too much choice, it's really hard to make a decision. You've sort of dealt with that.
Yeah. Some different choices within the civils. I say there's 9 distinct strands. But what we also do is we have employer days. So at the end of the year coming up in the next few weeks, actually, we'll have 20 different employers who come down and they'll have a look at young people who are graduating. We send them out ahead of time a little profile, a graduate profile, the certificates they've achieved, the machines that they're competent in, they've got tickets in, the machine hours that they've logged, and so on and so forth. And they'll come down and we'll set practical tasks for the young people. There'll be excavators, rollers, graders, some manual stuff as well, and they'll be able to get a look at the young people and see, geez, yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's good at that. He's great at that. And they're great at laying pipes, and that's drainage. We're looking for drainage people or drainage offsiders. So they'll go and interview them. And often by the end of the day, most people have got jobs.
Good morning.
Selamat pagi.
Kalimera.
Buongiorno.
Magandang
좋은
umaga.
아침이에요.
Want to make sure every parent feels connected and informed, no matter what language they speak? Communication just got easier. With Zuno's multi-language feature, you can now connect with parents in over 130 languages, automatically translated, instantly understood, whether it's reminders, updates, or celebrations. Families receive your message in their preferred language, with no extra steps from you, no confusion, just clear communication, every time. Try it today to build stronger school-to-home partnerships, inclusive, effortless, and effective.
These kids we're talking about, the term that's thrown around is that they're at academic risk. That was the terminology. What does that actually mean?
Look, so students in WA at academic risk, that you've got to be termed that to be part of a special assistance or care school curriculum and engagement and education. And there are definitions of it. From people who are involved in juvenile justice or whatever else, to people who've been bullied out of school, people with mental health, people who just are non-attenders, people who have just had a hand dealt to them which does not assist them in getting to school. They haven't been attending. There may be learning issues. There may just be issues with teachers or other young people in the school that have caused them to not attend and then disengage. And again, some of that is learning, and some of a lot of the students that we get coming through the school system, they'll be a couple of years behind their peers in terms of literacy and numeracy and so on and so forth. So we're doing a lot of identifying and then filling the gaps in the previous education as well.
One other thing while we're thinking about your students and your school, a message in particular at the Motivation Foundation, or in fact 2 beliefs that you really push heavily. One is belonging. The other one is hope. Can you tell us more about why these 2 words are so important to the school and the students?
So the hope is, for the young people, it does actually give them hope, because if they have not been in school for year 9 and year 10, or they've disengaged and they haven't done those subjects, they haven't got there, really there's not a great prognosis for them achieving their high school certificate, their WACE. It's not going to happen. They're not going to get their ATAR. They're not going to be university bound or TAFE bound. The literacy and numeracy might not be great. What's the point of trying? Because I'm not going to get it. There's no point in going to school. We show them this place. It's an industry simulated environment. We've got big yellow machines, and we've got lots of space to go and not play in them, learn in them, educate ourselves and become skillful operators. We give them the skills required in these machines. We give them the skills required in employment and in life, because we look at life skills and protective behaviours. We give them their education, so they do have functional literacy and numeracy, so they can do what's required in the workplace, so they can be successful at school, work, home and community. So there is hope for them. And the first thing that happens is when they're enrolled here, when we get them in, and this is one thing CTF does, is they get a full set of high-vis. They look the part, they feel the part, they come in, they know they've got to be in on time or early. They've got to treat their employees. We treat them like employees. We treat them like adults. So yeah, we're bringing them on with the belief that, geez, I'm going to get through this, and I am going to be able to drive these machines, get my certificate, and get a job. And generally a 2-year course, year 11 and year 12. And the new year 11s come in and they're apprehensive. They're scared of the machinery. They don't know what's going to happen to them. They don't know what the trainers are going to be like. And geez, do we really get a job? Is this real? And then they see the year 12s who are getting picked up and going to jobs and being employed. And it's like, wow, this is real. So that's where the hope is. So instead of, yeah, if they were doing what they continue to do, prognosis is not great. But this is a great outcome. With belonging, I say this is about engaging and developing a community. A lot of people who are at risk, they don't have the same supports that maybe people in 2.4 leafy greens do. So we extend that. So the staff that we employ, and we're very, very targeted with our staffing, are genuinely caring people who have the want to do this job and to change these people's lives. So when young people come in, yes, we get as much information as we can, from personal information as well as literacy, numeracy, all of these sorts of things, and none of it necessarily precludes enrollment, but what it does is it gives us a full picture of the young person, so we know where we've got to support, so we can be more effective. So we don't have a school uniform. We've got high vis. So when they were in their civil construction training days, that's what they come in. And when they come into classroom days, they can wear what they want, but they want to have the school and the motivation and foundation branding on, because it means they belong. Okay, they've got somewhere they belong, and that's just part of it. They all want some of that, something we develop. They know that they're safe. We don't ask them to do algebra or drive a JCB before they know how to do anything, because, geez, that's scary. They've got to know that they're going to be supported properly, so that if they do fail, they're going to get picked back up and they're going to be shown how to do it and supported to succeed. So yeah, it's about doing that. It's having that belonging. And what we say as well is that you actually never leave here. If you're off up north in a site somewhere, whatever else, and you're having a hard time, don't know how to deal with the supervisor, you pick up the phone and we'll give you some advice. You've got a new job, they've got a new grader, don't know how to use it. Come back, we'll give you a couple of hours, we'll get you going on it, and then you can go and you be confident in your work. So there's all sorts of different supports the students get once they're in here. So the culture is very accepting. Yes, there are boundaries, because, hey, we're running a simulated industry environment where we've got big, heavy and dangerous machinery if it's not used properly. So yes, we'll do drug and alcohol tests and so on and so forth, because that's industry standard. So yeah, you come within our bounds, work within our boundaries, and we will do everything possible to support you. So that's the belonging element. And again, in previous students here, they phone up, they drop in, they still feel part of us. They want to know when the graduation for the next young people are coming in. So we develop that culture of belonging.
Richie, you have just won a staunch advocate. That is exactly what we need in this society, because, yes, they could be slogans, hope and belonging, but they're actually rooted in the earth with Motivation Foundation. Hats off to you and everyone who lives and walks the talk. Wow.
Thank you very much.
Interestingly, you talked about coming on the first day and will the kid, the student thinking, oh, will I cope, will I not cope, etc. There is not so much Big Brother looking over them, a kind Big Brother, but I've been told, you use one of the Zuno Suite products, and you're a big advocate of using data to drive decisions.
Yeah.
What are some of the metrics that you're using to help support students?
So we're only just starting to use, we're only going to be starting with this in February. So I haven't learned the full extent of that package yet.
Yes, okay.
That's what we're going to be doing. With our young people, we individually case manage our young people, because they're all here for a different reason, from a different background, with a different set of strengths and needs, etc. For the supports they need. So that's all very individual. But what we do is we look at we look at and we log all behaviors, be them positive, be them neutral, be them anything, how the supports that we've got to put in place and when we put them in place. And then we can see patterns developing. So then we can then look at that data, the patterns, speak to the young girl, what was happening at that point in time. It may be something at home, it may be fear of going into the next job or another machine or whatever else it is. And how do these things represent? So yeah, we look at data, we look for patterns, and then we interrogate those patterns. Everything from behaviour to attendance to transition at the other end, and then we'll keep on collecting that data even after they've left the school or transitioned, so that we can look at that longitudinal data that we start to gather. So we'll be able to see, geez, where can we improve? Why did that not work? Why was that really good? So we can then focus on what we need to be doing to hit the goals.
And talking of goals, I mean, for some students, I mean, you mentioned earlier, there's some on $200,000 plus,
That's right, yeah.
jobs, etc. Beyond just them, that's got to be transformative for families and local communities as well. How aware are you of just that outworking of what you do?
This is one of the things that that there is data on how much functional families, stroke dysfunctional families, etc., cost. The country, the community, the family, the everything. So if we look at one student in particular who had low literacy numeracy, wasn't going to be graduating, and so on and so forth, then the prognosis probably isn't very good. It's going to be probably very low skilled or unemployment, relationships, happy, sad, successful, unsuccessful, dysfunctional, functional, alcohol, drugs, breaking up, children, so on and so forth, possibly prison. That's all a drain on the individual, the individual's family, the community, the finances of the city, state, country, whatever else. Now, if we turn that one person around, if that was their prognosis, then we've got one very happy student who will have a very happy family, who will be able to contribute to the family, who will hopefully find a partner, do all those nice things as well, but will also be contributing because of they're now working, they're improving the community. They're contributing financially to the community. They're contributing financially to the state and to the country. So you've got personal well-being, you've got families, relationships, community, but it gets bigger than that because it also becomes financial and part of the culture of the country.
I don't know how to bring this up. I'm sensing there's some sort of northern Glaswegian accent happening as you speak. You've done a lot of international travel. You've been obviously in Australia, of course. How is this sort of exposure to lots of different parts of the world and cultures, has it helped you with at Motivation Foundation? Is there anything that springs to mind?
A couple of things. First of all, making sure that my accent can be understood by people.
Sorry?
That's been that's been important. And it's funny, I was actually talking about this the other day. I was working in and I started teaching in 1994, and worked in top end schools, low end schools, so on and so forth. And then I moved into what were in Scotland, it was the bad boy school, essentially. Young people who didn't have much of a outlook, who were residential school, juvenile offenders, and so on and so forth. And when I was there, I wrote a bit of an essay, if you like, on what I thought was wrong with the system I was working in, and what it should be. And I forgot about it. And probably 3 or 4 years ago, we're moving house, and I found the old folder, and that fell. I think it's so old, it's done on a dot matrix printer. And I read through it, and it's what I wanted to be. And you know what? It was exactly what I was doing at that school that I started and was in for 10 years. And it wasn't conscious. But what I found was that from working in sort of lower socio-demographic areas, versus working in the most expensive state school, most expensive independent school in the state. Those students in that expensive independent school, they were going to make it no matter who was standing in front of them, teaching them, algebra, physics, whatever it was. They're going to make it anyway. So my impact is probably negligible there. But in this sector, when we are taking somebody who doesn't have a great prognosis and you manage to turn that around, it's phenomenal. And even at parents' nights, we'll have students come in at the parents' night. We could bring the parents in, and they're in tears because it's the first time they've had a positive experience with a school report and a parents' night. So you can imagine what graduation's like. It's horrendous. There's tissues everywhere. But that's good tears. That's wonderful. And yeah, the young people that come back to me and say, geez, I want to give back because I'm now doing this, that, and the other. So I want to pay for everybody's canteen for Christmas. And these are some of the students who come back and do that for us. So no, it's a wonderful thing. And it's just that belonging,
And I've been doing some reading recently on the field of epigenetics, which talks about how trauma we experience gets passed in our genes for 4 or 5 generations. But it can be turned around. And so if you think about that, we are talking about a multi-generational impact that is starting with the Motivation Foundation. That is humbling.
Potentially and hopefully, and yeah, that's one of the things we look at, and what we have is our staff that we're developing and current. Everything is trauma-informed practice because our students have experienced that, and we want to make sure they're not re-traumatized. We are addressing these things so that we reduce anxiety. So we have people who are not scared to fail because they know how to get over that. We support them and we generate resilience.
Last question, and I want to look ahead a little bit. You're set up to support students in Perth. You're also going to be supplying skilled staff to the Henderson shipyards, I believe, and AUKUS. There's also a new contract with the building Japanese design ships.
Yep.
Looking ahead 5 to 10 years, I know this is very unfair, this question, but what sort of opportunities do you see emerging for your students in that time horizon?
We haven't got the engineering pathways on for all the shipbuilding and things in Henderson yet. That's for the future. But what we want to concentrate on are pathways and transitions for those students who are not surviving in academia. They're not making the schools. So it's an alternative pathway for these young people to give them something which is tangible and achievable to give them a positive life. So with job comes money, comes opportunity. So that's what we're trying to deliver these young people. So yes, initially it's been around the civils and the mining, but the engineering pathways, that's another facet. And who's to know what we look at next, because we know we don't have enough electricians and plumbers and So where do we go next? I don't know yet, but I don't want to try and run before we can walk. New school opens in February 2026. And there could be other opportunities as we move forward.
No matter where it goes, I do hope, and I'm pretty confident that the good ship MEX will stay afloat.
Absolutely.
Richie Furber, thank you very much for being part of Around the School Table.
You're very welcome. Thank you.